When we talk about courage, we can sometimes make the mistake of searching for extreme examples like we see in the movies. One in a million situations that bear little resemblance on everyday life. When we categorize courage this way, we run the risk of missing something very important. That there may be already a hero sitting in the room among us. Tonight we salute Jim Wherry. People say you should savor every moment and live life to the fullest. When you hear this, think of Jim. Jim has embodied this spirit his entire life.
You know, the old phrase, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. To me, it's beyond lemonade. It's spiked. I mean, he lives life to the fullest.
I think Jim is one of the local heroes, certainly a hero to his family and his friends, but maybe an unsung hero in this community who gave and gave and gave and continues to give in a way that ensures a certain quality of life for all of us.
Well, the old story that the only Bible someone else may ever read may be you. And that's what Jim would be like.
He was part of a generation that really, truly believed that you had to do more than one thing for your community, that just belonging to the Lions Club wasn't enough. Just going to church and being an elder wasn't enough. You had to be a multitasker when it came to being a volunteer. And that's how you recruited other people into the volunteer process, because you would bring people from your church to the Cancer Society, and you bring those to the American Red Cross, and you bring those to Lions. That's really what Jim specialized in, was introducing you to other opportunities to be a part of the community and give back.
And he's a great guy to work with because he's a team player. So that his ego does not get in the way of doing a good job.
Fantastic team member, fantastic leader. It just felt good to have him side by side, and still does, to have him side by side working with you to achieve a goal.
We were out golfing, and all of a sudden Lenny Rich, who was superintendent of Laurel School District, he steps back and he says, "Watch out, native dancers coming through." Well, here native dancer had run in the Derby that year, and when Jim golfed, he put his feet all over, he just pattered his feet around like he was stomping on something. And
the very first time I golfed with him, I'd heard about this nickname, Dancer, and I didn't know what it meant until I saw him get up to the tee box and do something along the lines of this. And I thought it was the most unusual ritual before someone hit the ball in my life. He did it well. Very well.
From then on, he had the name Native Dancer, and we call him Native.
Described as a man of perpetual motion and activity, Jim loved the outdoors. He was an avid golfer, tennis player, and cyclist. He and his wife, Elaine, loved to travel. But first and foremost, Jim is a family man, active in the lives of his children and grandchildren.
But, he was a guy that you could always rely on. He was the Little League coach. My dad's the money guy, and he's an accountant. So for every organization he's been involved with, he's been the treasurer or something like that. So with Boy Scouts, he was the treasurer. When we had youth group projects, he helped out there. He was the guy that whenever I had a track meet or a cross country meet, you could always look up and see Dad in the stands.
I don't know, he was always really energetic. Always wanted to be a big part of our lives, always wanted to play with us, always wanted to be active with us. He'd always take us, we'd go up to Moraine and go bike riding all the time.
It makes me feel really great that I have both of them actually, both grandparents, that really strive to be at every sporting event, ballet recital, anything that they can get to. And they really have missed only a few, so they go to everything as possible, and they are attentive to the whole thing and cheer us on. It's really great.
Looking back, there were some nasty days that they were out there. I remember one race, it was end of the meet, I was running the 2 mile, and the other team had actually left. And it was just me and 2 other kids running the race, and they were still there kind of hanging through it all, just to be able to watch me run.
8 years ago, while volunteering on a project for Habitat for Humanity, Jim suffered a severe, debilitating stroke. The stroke symptoms spanned 2 days and left him with paralysis along the right side of his body.
The second day when we're waiting for the test results, and I looked at him because I was sitting, he's in the bed and I'm over here. I looked at him, I said, "Does your face feel numb?" He said, "Yes." And I walked over and I said, he couldn't grip my hand. I said, "You're having a stroke."
This can't be true. You always figure it's going to happen to somebody else's dad or someone else's mom, and I'm not sure you're ever totally prepared to get the phone call, and then just kind of went numb for a while, just trying to process it and figure out what it meant.
It just goes, and it's tragic because you just sit there and you watch it happen, and you just pray and you hope that it'll end, and you just don't know when it's in. You just have to wait it out in some ways, and it's so frustrating. You get angry, you get upset, and you just feel like, what do we do? What can we do?
Each year in the United States, 700,000 people experience a stroke. That's 1 every 40 seconds, and a leading cause of serious, long-term disability.
So a lot of with stroke is, there can be death associated with it, but it's really the disability that comes with it. Death with heart attacks or other things are probably more prevalent, but really with strokes, it's the fact that you're probably going to survive and you're just going to have to live with some type of disability, which some people may think is worse.
Jim Wherry, an active and physically fit man just 2 years into his retirement, suddenly had to learn how to walk all over again.
That's the first thing when I went into my mind. I kept saying, I'm going to recover from this. I'm going to recover from it, but never did.
As far as the motor weakness goes, it can be mild in that you have a little bit of a weakness, or it can be severe where you are completely paralyzed on that side and can't move it at all. And the rehab can help get some things back, but often, sometimes it doesn't come back.
I tried to, when I went to the hospital, they got me up, I think, the second day and took me up for rehab, and I tried for like a year and a half to get some movement, but didn't work. But I tried like hell, yeah.
Over 40% of stroke victims suffer from post-stroke depression, with 26% of those cases being diagnosed as severe.
Probably for about a month when I got home, I was considering starting my car in the garage and sitting in it, right? And after about a month, I said, "That's ridiculous." But, it took a while to get over it.
Sure, in his mind, he figured this was going to be the beginning of maybe sliding downhill. But he hasn't. He's been relatively healthy, and I think if you picture him and see him, you'd be kind of, if you didn't know he had the stroke and obviously the physical limitations, you wouldn't think it if he was just sitting there.
The amazing thing is that he's not terribly different. He was jokey, he was upbeat, he was positive before it happened. And he's still upbeat and jokey and positive after it has happened. I think that, in my mind, that's the remarkable thing.
The Great Escape is probably, I call it the Great Escape, is probably the big thing. But after about a year, I think it was about a year in, that my mom just needed a break. And she went away for a number of days with some friends. And at that point, we discussed about what to do with Dad. We were afraid to leave him alone at that point. So we put him in, I think it was Rhodes Estate.
Must have been, was it Thursday night maybe? He called me. And I went, "Oh, I didn't get a chance to call you yet." He said, "Well, I want to let you know I'm home." "You're what? You're home? What do you mean you're home?" I said, "How did you get home?" And he said, "Todd sprung me."
Jim never is overbearing anyway, and he wanted the window, and they wouldn't open the window, and so anyhow, he called me and said, "Todd, come and get me. I'm out of here."
And I had told them when I took him down there, I said, "There is nothing wrong with his mind. He's capable of taking his own medications." And I said, "He does not like a hot room. So if he turns that heat down, he opens the windows." Well, this one night shift aide, I guess, just wouldn't put up with it and intimidated him, really. And as a person with a stroke, it's intimidating.
I don't need to be here. This is not for me. This is not who I am. I'm signing myself out. I was like, that's kind of awesome.
Like, you wanted to feel bad for him, but at the same time, he didn't want you to feel bad for him. Like, he wanted to be able to do everything himself still, and he did, and he kind of pushed through it.
It's easy to realize the life change for the person who's been afflicted, and it's not always easy to identify the life change for the caregiver, because it's totally changed her life also, and that person sometimes can be overlooked. Everyone's always asking how dad's doing, and it's important to know how mom's doing.
I don't think we ever broke down and cried. I mean, we just he would get real agitated for a while, and a couple of times I said, you don't shape up, I'm gonna leave, and then what are you gonna do? I'm tough. And then I'd feel terrible. I'd walk out.
Yeah, she has been excellent to help me. I mean, if it wasn't for her, I'd have to go to a skilled nursing home, right? But she has done everything for me, and she has been wonderful, right? For everything she has done for me, right? And she doesn't take any crap. I mean, if she gives me hell if I do something. Yeah, like when I broke the chair, she was all over me.
Dreams that they had together, they weren't necessarily squashed, they were just changed.
I just think you have to work your way through it, and it takes a long time. And I'm not saying you ever get over it, because I haven't, but you have to deal with it.
You just gotta learn to adjust and go and do other things, right? Yep, that's what I say.
What most people don't appreciate is that period between when the stroke happened and where Jim is today, and his ability to continue to give back.
Never off the radar, in our hearts and prayers during the most difficult time. But beyond that, he was back in the swimming pool with us. He was back there with us, doing what we want to do, enjoying life. He did not fall off the radar by any means. And he wouldn't allow himself to do that.
You don't have to just sit there in a chair and let your mind fall apart. And as I say, he's a poster child for that.
I work with him in a men's organization here in the community. He's been the secretary for a number of years, and that occurred after his stroke. He took on that role. So that tells you the kind of person Jim Wherry really is. Most people, after they have a stroke, if you ask them to be treasurer, they'd say, "Are you nuts?" Jim's answer was, "Yep, I'm in."
You can make the choice. You could live in bitterness about what's happened to you and just wither away, or you can say, "This is the hand I've been dealt, fair or not, and let's roll."
I always want to think that these are the strongest people in your lives, but to actually see him go through it and see how well he dealt with it, it was nice to see that he actually is as strong as you think he is.
Jim's a remarkable person. He really is. I just can't praise him enough. I really can't.
He made this roadblock into a speed bump. I mean, it didn't stop him. It slowed him down a little, but he's still going on, and he chose to continue with his life and not let it hold him back.
And I think if something like this happened to me, that I hope I would be able to handle it with the same amount of grace. Because so much changed for him so fast.
We all like to think we'd handle it the right way, but we don't know. And he did, and I think that says a lot about him.
What Paul has said in Romans about accepting what we have rather than wishing for things that we don't have. So we have to learn to accept where we are and what we have, and the Lord will watch over us no matter what. And I think that's the way Jim would think about that.
As I said, I didn't think I would even make 8 years to begin with. I mean, obviously, I hate to be this way, but it's better than being the other way.
Congratulations, Papa.